Yeah!
Lately, it feels like we've been in somewhat of a renaissance of 3D platformers. Year after year, we've been getting quality games out of this genre. Of course, you have the big dog Nintendo releasing games such as Super Mario Odyssey and the more recent Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But you also have smaller indie studios making huge strides in the genre and sort of taking over the 3D platformer space with their own original style and flair. And then there's the third-party studios reviving classic platforming mascots. Double Fine brought back Psychonauts, both Crash and Spyro got remakes, with Crash finally getting a brand new game, and even KO the Kangaroo of all games is getting a brand new entry. It really seems like now is the time for 3D platformers to come back in full force, and you would think that any studio with a platformer IP and mascot would want to strike while the iron is hot and capitalize on this nostalgia, right? Well, you'd be surprised. Which brings me to today's topic, a series that is near and dear to my heart, Rayman. It baffles me how Ubisoft has dropped the ball so hard with this franchise. There have been so many opportunities for Rayman to come back over the years, but time and time again, Ubisoft fails to do so. Now I understand that Ubisoft is a much different company than they were in the 2000s or even the 2010s, but even so, there is obviously a demand for Rayman to return when he literally trends every single time that there's a Ubisoft Forward or any other type of conference involving the company. So what gives? Rayman used to be up there with all the other platforming icons with some of the best games in the genre under his proverbial belt. Yet for Ubisoft, the character feels more like a footnote in the company's history at this point. The only real recent recognition Rayman has gotten has been a character slot in Brawlhalla, and while that's something that's really cool, the other side of the coin is whatever the hell this thing is. Ugh. The last major release Rayman had was Rayman Legends, and while that game got a solid re-release on the Switch, the game originally came out nearly a decade ago. I think it's finally time that Rayman returns in at least some form, and I'm not counting Mini due to its reuse of Legends assets and its extremely limited availability on the Apple Arcade. But whether it's 2D or 3D, I think now it's time for Ubisoft to bring him back to his former glory. Honestly, I was even thinking of the possibility of Ubisoft selling the property off to a studio that might actually make use of them. It doesn't really feel out of the realm of possibilities with all the studio acquisitions going on lately. Even the most recent example of Embracer and Square Enix showed that it is possible for companies to sell off specific parts of themselves that they don't want anymore, but this is a very specific sort of what-if scenario that I really can't hold my breath for, and even if Ubisoft did get acquired, it's hard to say if anything would really change with the company, so for better or worse, we gotta assume that Rayman is stuck with Ubisoft for the foreseeable future. And so I came up with some potential ways that Ubisoft could try and breathe some new life into the franchise and potentially bring Rayman back into the spotlight. The first idea I have is the most obvious and potentially the easiest way for Ubisoft to bring back Rayman. Remakes and/or remasters. Crash and Spyro are key examples of testing the waters for a character revival with remakes. Honestly, even if Ubisoft didn't do full remakes like Crash and Spyro, and just did remasters of Rayman 2 and 3, it would at least be something. Because right now, these games are only available on legacy hardware or digital libraries. The only instance of a remaster or remake that I can think of is Rayman 3D on the 3DS, and that game is a little rough around the edges. But like I said, bringing back Rayman 2 and 3 and potentially Rayman 1 would be a super easy way for Ubisoft to bring back Rayman while also gauging if the series really has a big enough consumer base to warrant a proper return. Which brings us to the next logical way Ubisoft could bring back Rayman. Maybe it's finally time to just make Rayman 4 already. I mean, the demand is clearly there from fans, and it's been years since we got our tease from Murphy in Rayman 3. And while I know that was more of a joke, Rayman 4 has at least come up in conversation a few times since 3's release. I mean, we had potential for a full game from Phoenix Interactive in at least the conceptual stages before it got scrapped, and Rayman Raving Rabbids was nearly Rayman 4 before it decided to lose its dignity. All jokes aside, I actually kinda like Raving Rabbids. But anyways, some may say that the biggest hurdle preventing Rayman 4 from being developed was Michel Ancel, Rayman's creator, due to his other projects like Beyond Good and Evil 2. And now he isn't even with the company anymore, which could spark more worries for Rayman's future. But we need to remember, Rayman 3 was developed largely without any input from Ancel, and it's honestly my favorite Rayman game other than Legends. So Rayman 4 is definitely possible without the creator. We just need Ubisoft to want to make it and for them to put the right team behind it that will actually care for the property. Enter my final idea. Now, this one is admittedly a stretch, but it's one that has been on my mind ever since Mario Rabbids came out in 2017. So bear with me, but I think that Ubisoft Milan is the right studio to bring back Rayman in at least some form. Milan managed to make an incredible game with Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and it oozed charm. Charm that I honestly felt could translate incredibly well to the Rayman series. In fact, I was honestly surprised that Rayman didn't at least cameo in that game. And now new info has popped up from a while back that gets me even more invested in the prospect of a Milan-developed Rayman game. While it was only one tweet, Davide Soliani, director of Mario Rabbids, responded to a tweet talking about Rayman. And he said that the team has a lot of love for the property and that he would love for the opportunity to do something with the character. Now, that might just be him hoping Ubisoft even wants to make another Rayman, but at least the precedence is there for another internal Ubisoft studio to pick up the IP and try to do something new with it. And who knows, with Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope on the horizon, maybe our limbless hero could make an appearance or even a playable role. I for one am holding out hope for that. Come to think of it, I always thought that if Ubisoft wanted to make Mario Rabbids multiplat, if they were even allowed to by Nintendo, the cast of Rayman would be a great substitute for the Mario cast, but that's nothing more than a pipe dream for me. Regardless of what happens, I do not believe that the Rayman series is dead. Ubisoft has at least acknowledged it enough in recent years to show that they do still have a place for the series within the company. It's just a matter of time when they decide to do something with the series. I am excited for what the future may hold for the helicopter-haired hero, but for now, I think that's enough out of me. If you guys like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Later!